Y'all knew that we wanted to start making hard cheese, but to do that we needed extra equipment, like a cheese press. And we love the New England Cheese Making Company. It's where we get our liquid rennet from, and liquid rennet is what we need to make our soft cheeses. So we decided to reach out to them and ask them if they'd be willing to provide some of the equipment needed to make hard cheeses. And they graciously sent us everything that we needed to get started. So, and we're also going to use one of their recipes today because it's supposed to be easy and for beginners like me. So let's get this unboxed and then let's get into the recipe. All right, so I did have to open this as soon as it arrived because these came in that box. This is a culture that you do need to make certain hard cheeses like cheddar. They sent us 2 of these, so we'll be able to make 10 2-pound batches with this. So that's more than what we're gonna need today. But I had to get these out because these need to go in the freezer right away. And then the next thing was 2 of these butter muslin. So they're both 1 yard each. And that's what we're gonna use to drain the cheese curds out of the way. And then this is one of those pieces of equipment that you'll need to make hard cheese. So this is a cheese mold. This is for 2-pound, I believe. And then last but not least, the cheese press. Now this one, I'll leave a link for it, comes fully assembled. It's meant for hard cheeses, like cheddar. There's a whole list of cheeses that this one can do. It's on their website. Again, I'll leave a link so you guys can see that. This is instructions on how to use it. It comes with this drip tray. So pretty much you're gonna place this underneath with your mold, and then the whey that comes out of the cheese press as it's pressing will run off on here, and you can place something underneath, I'm sure, to catch that. So let's get all this put away so that we can clear the stove to make the cheese. All right, y'all, this is at 90 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, now it's time to add in this culture. This is what came in that yellow package I showed you. So this will ripen. It says 2 gallons of pasteurized milk, 4 gallons of farm fresh milk, but in the recipe that I'm reading, she says to use a whole packet, and she says it's for raw or pasteurized milk. We're gonna dump this in, mix it in, cover it, and let it ripen for 45 minutes. I have a 1/2 teaspoon of liquid rennet. That is from them too. We use it for mozzarella, cottage cheese, love it. And that's diluted, it's a 1/2 teaspoon diluted in 1/4 cup of water. Now that I put the liquid rennet in here, I'm just gonna stir with an up and down motion for 1 minute, and then because we're using farm fresh cow's milk, I'm gonna top stir. So I'm gonna just touch my spoon to the top of the milk, not putting it more than like a 1/2 inch deep, and make sure that the butter fat is stirred in. Because with farm fresh milk, raw milk, the butter fat actually rises to the top and separates from the milk. Now I'm just gonna cover this again and let it sit for another 45 minutes or until the curds give a clean break. And the reveal of the curds, I was like unsure for a second if they actually formed into curds, but you can see they give a nice clean break in there. So we're gonna go ahead and just cut these up in a crisscross pattern.
Cheese.
Abby's excited.
Oh, cheese.
And then according to their diagram, you're gonna go in at like a 45-degree angle and just go down. All right, y'all, now it is in a sink of hot water. We're gonna slowly heat it up to 100 degrees. And we're also gonna gently stir while this process is happening. I believe it says in the recipe that it should take about 30 minutes. She also said that the curds would shrink noticeably and drop to the bottom. All right, so after letting this get to 100 degrees in that warm water, I then put a lid back on it and let it sit for 5 minutes. So you notice that the curds have really sunk in here and it's really turned a nice yellow color. So now we're gonna go ahead and strain it through this muslin in a colander. All right, now I'm just gonna go knot the 4 corners up together, and I'm gonna hang it. I believe it said for an hour. After hanging it for an hour, I moved it to a bowl so that I could chop it up into little pieces before moving it to the press. Now, I was super surprised at how soupy this gets when you start cutting it up. Like, most of the time when you hang like soft cheeses for an hour, they're totally dried out. But this was not. You can already see the whey starting to collect in the bottom, and by the time that I'm actually done here, it's gotten so soupy. I was worried that I didn't hang it long enough, but I decided to move forward with the recipe because it said an hour. So I went ahead and loaded up the cheese press with all these curds. And I'm sorry I didn't show more of it, but I was trying to figure out exactly how to use this thing. It wasn't hard to figure out. It just took me a few minutes of reading instructions and putting pieces together in my head. So pretty much it was just the cheesecloth inside the mold, loaded up the curds, then I put those little followers on that you see there, and I pushed it down to the proper weight, which was 10 pounds for 10 minutes. After that 10 minutes, I flipped the wheel of cheese and I put it back in the press for 20 pounds for 10 minutes. And then after that, I had to flip it again, and it had to be at 50 pounds for 12 hours. And because at this point it was starting to get a little late in the day, I had to let it go overnight, which was slightly over 12 hours. Now, as soon as I got up in the morning, I wanted to see what this cheese wheel looked like, but the press was not actually applying any kind of pressure to the cheese wheel anymore because the followers had fallen so far down into the mold, it couldn't apply pressure. So I was worried about what this was going to look like. I figured that this was probably normal, but I was still worried that maybe it hadn't pressed it long enough now because it had fallen so far down in. Now, before I had went to bed, I had readjusted the press because the followers had been going down, so it would still be applying 50 pounds, but by the time I got up in the morning, it just wasn't applying any pressure anymore. So this is what it looked like coming out of the press. I had to gently peel back all that cheesecloth just to make sure it didn't rip. I was also concerned because I couldn't get the cheesecloth very smooth in the mold, that it was gonna leave like huge dents in my cheese wheel or whatever, but it actually came out looking pretty nice. Much nicer than I expected it was going to look. And this was a super, did not expect this process to be so easy. It looks like that the press dropping down and not holding the pressure that it should have the rest of the night wasn't a big deal. It seems to still have come out okay. So now I have to leave it out and let it develop a natural rind, and this can take anywhere from 2 to 5 days depending on the humidity and the temperature. And we're going to flip it several times a day so the moisture doesn't collect on the bottom. And then it's time to start the aging process. So there's a couple ways that we can do this. We decided to get a cheese preserver from eBay, and I'll leave a picture up for it. We don't have it yet, but it'll be here in time when we need to put us in to start aging. And then the other option is to wax it and then put it somewhere to age. That may be what we end up doing in the future, because with a cheese preserver, we can only put one wheel of cheese in there at a time. Whereas if we get wax, we can do as many as we have room to store. So it needs to age for at least a month. So if you all want to see us come back and taste test this wheel of cheese when it's done aging, make sure to like and subscribe.